Hill Farmstead, located in Greensboro, Vermont, is brewing up some world-class beers. And we're here to find out the story about how they got started, what they're working on today, and what's going on in the future. So come with us and explore the green hills of Vermont at Hill Farmstead.
My name is Phil Young. My official title would be Special Operations Manager and Media Liaison, as described in my contract. But I've been here the longest of any employee. When I first started, it was just Sean, myself, and one other guy, Dan Suarez. Since then, the staff is bigger now, we'll say.
My name is Kerrie Montgomery, and my position is retail staff in hospitality. I've been working here for over 4 years now, and I've been helping since the beginning.
My name is Vasilios Gletsos. I am the production manager here at Hill Farmstead. I do some lab work as well as a lot of the work in the mixed fermentation cellar. I
was a longtime friend and happened to move back to the area just in time to see the beginning of Hill Farmstead.
I had a country store from 2003 to 2010, something like that, and just up here in West Glover, me and Sean met through like a friend of a friend. I started just carrying some beers that most stores around here didn't carry. Most stores back then around here just carried your normal domestic beers, and I brought in whatever was available at the time. I think it was like Sierra Nevada was probably the most exotic thing available at that point. There was a fairly successful restaurant being run out of the back of it called Parker Pie that my friend started. I rented the space to them, and then they essentially took over the store, bought me out, whatever you want to call it, and because I had an opportunity to come work here.
I've been professionally brewing for about the last 11 and a half, 12 years. I'd known Sean for about that same amount of time, right before I professionally started brewing, and he'd been at it probably part of a year or something like that professionally. I was an avid home brewer at that point and transitioning into professional brewing. And my wife is from this area. I came back here regularly. I was looking to open up my own brewery out in Oregon, and he offered me this position. So a chance to move back to family and friends back here and work at a great brewery. Yeah. Plus, plus.
The official grand opening was Memorial Day 2010, but I mean the real origin of it, I guess, was Sean started homebrewing as a high school science project, actually, when he was like 15 or 16, I don't remember exactly. Continued to homebrew through college and whatnot. Never actually went to like school for brewing necessarily. Got his first real brewery job at the shed, basically just washing kegs, doing whatever he could, and then worked his way up eventually to head brewer there. And then went to work at Trout River, and then was lucky enough to get a job in Denmark at Norbo Breweries. Worked there a couple years, and it sort of came to the point, as I understand it, that he was basically like, well, I can either stay here in Denmark and enjoy life, and it's a nice place to live, but at the same time, he wanted to come back here and sort of revive Hill Farmstead, so to speak. The logo was even family inspired, so the glass, a lot of people call it the wine glass, in the logo, that exact image was taken from a sign that somebody found in their attic back in the 50s, I believe. And the sign said A. Hill Entertainment, and A. Hill was Aaron Hill, who would be Ephraim's dad, so Sean's great something grandfather. He took that image and just created the sort of border or whatever you want to call around it, and that's just supposed to look like an H. There's a lot of speculation what that might mean too, but that's what it means. So yeah, everything right down to the logo. Many of the beers' names are family inspired, but this was Sean's way of kind of revitalizing this particular spot, and I think he's done a pretty good job. We broke the first 3 rules of business, right? Location, location, location. But yeah, luckily it hasn't seemed to affect affect us in a negative way. I think at this point it's sort of become like this pilgrimage type thing. I hear people use that word all the time. You know, and if we were in the middle of some industrial park, I don't think it'd have the same feel. The first year Hill Farmstead was open, it was just the front building here, the original 20 by 40. And the second year, or actually even before the second year, another 20 by 40 building attached to it. Until December of 2013, we operated just in that 800 square foot space, that as far as the brew house and retail shop, and then the other 800 square foot space was the cellar, fermentation cellar.
In the early years, we didn't have enough storage space to have the bottles on site, and so we would use other locations. And I would spend my mornings driving to, different barns and garages and picking up cases of beer and then bringing them to the shop. So it was really excellent for my back and my car when we finally had places to store on site.
So that's where a lot of the stories about like lines out the door and stuff come from, because we didn't have any room to put people inside. Not the case anymore. I mean, you can see this room is fairly large. We still get phone calls like, oh, I heard that you have to wait for hours to get beer, and it's like, well, that may be true 3 or 4 times a year now, whereas pretty much with the new tap room going, this room you can usually virtually just walk in and right up to the counter, get bottles and go, unless we're having a release day. But even then, hopefully no more than 20 minutes to get a bottle. So Edward, that's our flagship beer, so to speak. That's American Pale Ale. It's the one beer that we always have in production, the one beer we always have on tap and available for growler fills. It's probably the most common beer that you see out in the marketplace, whether it's on tap here and there.
I am loyal to Edward, and I always will be. And I think it's a great pale ale, and it reminds me of everything that we've done here.
Basically any other beer with a person's name is an ancestor of Sean. So Sean's family, the Hills, have been in Greensboro since literally before it was Greensboro, so over 200 years. So there's many, many names to choose from. We aren't going to run out of names. But most of the ones people are familiar with, like Anna, Florence. Edward had 12 siblings, so a lot of those are Edward's siblings, and then it does reach further back than that. Like Abner was Edward's father. That's a double IPA. We have a triple IPA called Ephraim, and that was Abner's father, and on and on and on.
So somebody coming here for the first time, I'd definitely say checking through some of our vintage bottles, trying some of our saisons. We often have Dorothy on tap in the tap room. Those would be great first steps to understanding the breadth of what we do. Our main 3 categories are sort of pale hoppy beers, dark stouts, thick rich stouts, as well as sort of mixed fermentation, dry saison type beers. So I'd say trying each one of those things and understanding where we come from as brewers and drinkers, I think is critical to appreciating what we do and how unique of a place we've made here.
I'm also a wine person, and I love sparkling wines and things, and drinking some of our farmhouse ales is better than drinking a bottle of champagne to me. So I'm very fortunate to be surrounded by and completely overloaded with amazing, amazing beers.
I work a lot with the saisons and the mixed fermentation, so a lot of those are really, really close to my heart. Anne is a fantastic beer. Dorothy as well, one that we have regularly, and also has that great tartness that I appreciate in this.
But as far as philosophical series, Twilight of the Idols, Birth of Tragedy, Walden was actually a philosophical one. That's one sometimes people get confused about because it could be a person's name too, but that was originally a collaboration with John from The Alchemist and named after Thoreau's book, Walden. Sean started the brand Grassroots actually was when he was in Denmark, so it actually came before Hill Farmstead. And then we started using the label here as basically just to get it sort of out there again. Sometimes for a collaboration, like Brother Soigné was kind of a collaboration with Luke, formerly of De Ciel. Farmhouse ale brewed with lime and hibiscus, kind of non-traditional. So like Anna, Arthur, Florence, those are more sort of traditional. So it just sort of pops up here and there that we decide, yeah, let's put the Grassroots label on this one because it's slightly different in some way. There isn't like necessarily a cut and dry formula for a Grassroots beer, or but yeah, it's something we use from time to time. Ryan has used his brand Casita to do some collabs, like he did On Fleek with Stillwater. Yeah. So the Casita labels appeared on there, and that wasn't brewed here. You know, they're not just mere employees here. They have something that they can point to and say, yes, this is mine.
Sean has given us the ability to produce our own beers under our own label, brewed at Hill Farmstead, you know, as an employee of Hill Farmstead. And then my distribution company basically buys it back. This is the first time in my 11, 12-year career that I'm actually able to brew the recipe I want, create the label I want, and present my beers the way I want. So that's very exciting first for me. The beer I'm working on today is going to be a wheat beer that's made with various botanicals. First and foremost, sumac, which is not the poisonous variety of sumac, of course, but staghorn sumac. It's a beautiful, beautiful herb, and it has like sort of a pink lemonade, acidic character to it. Very, very excited to see it come to a larger scale.
I just think how good the beer is what contributed to the success, you know, and certainly, for better or worse, a lot of hype surrounding it. Rate beer #1 certainly put us on the map, so to speak. Numerous articles, you know, people see you in the New York Times, they see you in Time Magazine, they see you in Vanity Fair. They pay attention. Those are big publications.
You know, I worked in various breweries of various amount of popularity, so to work at a place where your work is so watched and everything, it gives us some inspiration as we go throughout our day. For the most part, we're still really competing against ourselves to a certain degree, always trying to achieve our best results, always trying to do the best work we can. That being said, it's great to know that you have such an excited audience for your beers, for your work.
We've never actively marketed in any way, shape, or form, and that's, you know, by design. It's not something we're real interested in. This is like basically the closest thing we do is interviews like this, and I think it just comes back to the beer consistently being that good.
We have regular friends and clients that come multiple times a year from places, you know, that are quite far away, and it feels like we see them every day. I see people from Chicago and San Diego, and keeps us sort of in tune with the rest of the world without actually having to leave our little nook in Vermont. So we've had people who have met here and then got engaged here, you know, a year or two later, and then come here on their honeymoon. So it's pretty intense to, you know, to be a part of these people's lives. That, you know, it's great.
I know process is something that Sean talks a lot about, not just in brewing, but just in how we do things here, whether it be, you know, everything from sweeping the floor to washing kegs to filling kegs, and process has always been a focus of his. You know, I think it's a good thing to be focused on. You get the most out of your people, you get the most out of your product, or, you know, whatever it may be.
The power of self-examination as well as the experience that we all bring to it. All of us in the operations have 10 years or more of brewing experience. So in terms of something magical, I don't think it's that as much as just bringing all your capacity and ability to bear on the process. We're definitely not like a gimmicky brewery. We're always self-examining and trying to create the best beers that we want to drink. And I think that honest approach, as well as critical self-examination, I think that's really what you need. There's no magic bullet anywhere here. We don't keep a magic bullets there or there.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
People come to Vermont to ski. Now they come to Vermont and visit breweries. It's just a thing that people do now, whereas I don't feel 5 years ago that was necessarily the case. It was more just people who were really into it. So we've benefited from that. Certainly, we sort of, I think, hit it at just the right time. It's on an upslope. It'll be curious to see when the plateau occurs. Maybe it has already and I just haven't noticed.
My background in studio art and performance and things like that, for me it's always critical to have that give and take with it. So having people be able to sit and enjoy something that you do, appreciate it for what it is, making people happy, doing what you love, what could be better?
It's easy for me to lose sight of like what everybody else deals with every day. Is sort of like, you know, you live in New York City, I'm sure your daily routine is much different. So I feel, you know, it's good to like step back and appreciate that. You know, I'm able to raise my son here, same, you know, I literally live on the same driveway I did growing up. So just having that sense of place, you know, we talk about, that's certainly talked about in the Hill Farmstead ethos a lot, and just appreciating this place. You know, not just Hill Farmstead, but the Northeast Kingdom, whatever you want to call it.
I was always envious going down to Oregon wine country and seeing all the beautiful trellises of grapes and things like that they have out there. I feel like we've got that sense of place in paradise here too. So I feel very lucky to see the sunset, see the sunrise out here. It brings a real sense of satisfaction. You know, come out of work late or something like that, and there's a big, beautiful sky full of stars. It's definitely part of the inspiration that drives us here is the place.
I love my drive to work, and I love that people come in and they're often sort of in shock and will tell me, "Did you know it was a 2-mile dirt road to get here?" And I laugh and I actually did know that, and I love it. You know,
I have a great time working here. It's I feel very lucky to have this job, and this particular area of Vermont is not known for great employment opportunities necessarily. So it's humbling not only to work here at like such a great brewery, best brewery in the world, but just the way that whether it was a brewery or a paperclip factory, I would appreciate it just because it just is that nice to work here. It's certainly having great beer is a great perk, rather than great paperclips, but no.
So that about does it here at Hill Farmstead Brewery. Thanks for checking out the show. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all those social networking sites. You can find all the links in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we will see you guys in the next brewery. Cheers.